Americans at work, making clothes and accessories in hundreds of thousands of new styles every year for Miss and Mrs. America, for the mothers, wives, and daughters of Mr. America. From under the tireless eyes and unerring fingertips of these ladies' garment workers comes a constant flow of clothing for the women. The men and women who ply this trade are proud of their products. The union label is the mark of an industry that has pioneered in good labor management relations. This is the fabulous garment district of New York City, 7th Avenue just below Times Square, the heart of an $8 billion industry. The scene is a familiar one, too, from Boston to Los Angeles. The movements and speech of the porters and truckers belong to American folklore, the raw material of song, dance, and story. The people themselves probably unaware of the parts they play in the drama of American city life. From the Fig Leaf to Fifth Avenue, clothing is conceded to be of paramount importance to every Eve. About 450,000 clothing workers produce an average of 4 dresses a year for every American woman. Behind the mannequins and the shops on all the main streets of the United States are the dressmakers of 15,000 manufacturing plants to keep us well dressed. Although male members of the population sometimes grumble about the bills, some of them are not above window shopping in front of an attractive display of women's clothing. A new style starts with the designer, working individually or on a team with other designers if the establishment is a large one. Sketches are roughed out for what will soon be the latest thing. For reasons best known to themselves, the designers decide whether neck, waist, or hemline will be high, normal, or low. In short, how the female figure will appear this year. Many conferences are held with the manufacturer, the original idea reworked until it gels to everyone's satisfaction. A new dress is born. In the trade, it is referred to as a number and is a jealously guarded secret until ready for presentation to buyers. The designers bring their fashion drawings to life, assembling the pieces of material selected into a complete dress on a model. Venus smiles as her daughters feel moved now to take in a little here, then to let out a little there. When the fashion creators are satisfied with the basic dress, they add further feminine touches with trimmings and accessories. Now it must go to the sample maker who makes up a trial garment. Modifications may be found necessary as the original concept is put to the test of pins and needles. Then back to paperwork again as the pattern maker takes over. He prepares a set of patterns for all the parts of the first garment as put together by the sample maker. He is the architect of the designer's dream. Whether the final article goes over will depend to a large extent upon how faithfully he translates this dream into lines and measurements, how closely the cloth can be cut to his pattern. After being basted up, component parts are stitched firmly together to make a model dress known as the perfect size 10. This helps determine the practicality of the design for manufacturing purposes. Also, the number of operations that will be necessary to produce it. The sample makers use traditional inanimate clothes dummies for their exacting work to create the perfect prototype of the garment to be produced. The creations must now meet a critical test. The living model enters once more to display the sample to buyers of women's wear. This is still a trial run, a preview. If the number clicks, the manufacturer then puts it into production in quantity. In the days before the manufacturers made annual or seasonal trips abroad, new styles came to this country from Europe in the form of dresses on dolls that were called babies. Meanwhile, the cloth from which the pattern will be cut is selected. The design, weight, and texture of the material have an important bearing on how it will be handled from now on. From the original, the perfect pattern must be adapted to the variety of sizes required by proportionately increasing and reducing the dimensions. This is the map of a dress, carefully plotting the shoulders, collars, sleeves, and cuffs, necklines, waistlines, and hems, ribbons and pleats, scallops, braiding and piping, darts and linings. The cloth is laid out in layers so that as much as possible can be cut at one time. Cloth from many different industries, cloth from the fibers of plants, from the coats of animals, ground, beaten, shredded, twisted, woven, and knitted into 1,000 fabrics to decorate the human frame. The finished product of one industry becomes the raw product of another. What do these men see as they regulate the unceasing flow of cloth? A Christmas present for a child? The bathing suit on the winner of a beauty contest? The wrap on the guest at an affair of high society? The coat of the typist, stenographer, secretary? This is where they all begin. The map for a feminine world unfurls, now flat, later to become round. Patterns for all parts arranged here according to a master plan, so that there will be the least possible waste. Now the cutters go to work. Even though the machine has replaced the hand knife and the shears, it must be guided with precision. This is fast work and must exactly follow the lines of the pattern. The cut must be right the first time. These are among the most highly paid workers in the industry, like all true artisans, making a difficult job look easy. Cutting too little or too much material would result in pinches or bulges that would be anything but flattering. After being cut, all like parts are tied up in bundles. Assorters make sure that the proper parts come together in the sewing rooms, where a poet among them has said, "Dressmakers, cloak makers, sewers, measurers of all the distances between man and man, first and foremost bestowers of dignities, decrees, and titles, investors of mantles and togas, uniforms and tunics, liveries and pinafores, masters of gold and mourning, or ermine and veils of royal purple and bridal white, seamsters and seamstresses who sew the overalls of the worker and the apron of the housewife, supreme maps of all the conquered continents of civilization, your needles are the extreme barbed fence which holds back the primeval forest to the limits of the city. Between the Appian Way and the Sahara, between Fifth Avenue and the Fiji Islands, between man bent over the open book and the ape hanging from the ancient tree, there is only one bulwark and one defense. Your art, a spool of thread and a few cubits of cloth, a dress and a banner. We salute in you today the roar of the jungle, which has become a human voice, the ancient howl that has risen to a lilting song. We pick up today from your hands the swaddling clothes that have remodeled the beast into divine features. We salute you upon your house of steel and stone, cemented with sweat and tears, but now echoing with laughter. Dressmakers, cloak makers, sewers, standard bearers of all the forced marches of man. It is hard to imagine that not so long ago the garment district was known for its sweatshops, and the woman garment worker was the original poor working girl, on the job before 5 in the morning, working 15 to 16 hours a day, 60 to 84 hours a week for pennies. But it is in this same section of the city where the sweatshop originated that now poetic justice is being done. Enlightened management is joining labor in a concerted drive to wipe out the last remnants of this industrial blight. When seams have been sewn so adroitly that they are barely visible, that it looks as though the garment had been cut out of whole cloth, finishers put on the final touches: pockets, hooks and eyes, buttons and belts, frills and furbelows, everything just so, attached with stitches that will stay. Every frock must make every woman feel like a queen. Cloth, being what it is, must be smoothed by pressing. The parts, the seams, the whole, ironed into shape. This is hard work, heavy work, but every move is an instinct with the adept handler of the iron. Not a single motion wasted. Every piece of cloth given its appointed finish. As the racks fill up, inspectors give every garment a final going over with sight and touch to make sure it qualifies for the union label, which is the assurance of good workmanship and manufacture. It takes the skills of a multitude of specialists to provide the women of America with coats, suits, skirts, blouses, knitted goods, negligees, children's wear, and buttons and bows. No longer downtrodden denizens of the sweatshop, these cutters, markers, and sample makers, sewing machine operators and drapers, finishers, pressers, and clerks, all members of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, AFL-CIO, use the simple tools of ancient history, pins and needles and the sewing machine, which, as much as anything, created the Industrial Revolution, to keep the American woman the best dressed in the world. Americans at work for Miss and Mrs. USA, speeding a wardrobe on its way to you.
Americans at Work, presented as a public service by the AFL-CIO. Next week, another interesting story of Americans at work. Americans whose skill and effort help keep our country great and strong.